Takt Symphony takes Uma Musume's question of what if X were anime girls and decided to ask it about musical scores. From the opening scene, I thought it had promise. It's a funny concept that would at least have good music, considering many of the characters are just classical music brought to life. But once I started playing the game, I felt a lot less confident in the game itself. It's not bad per se, and I'm sure it's great for the music enjoyers, but for me it felt like it didn't do enough to stand apart from its peers. To start with a positive though, I genuinely really like the look of the combat in the game. It tries to do the HD 2D style in games like Octopath Traveler, and it looks nice. However, something that also pops up in Takt is that there isn't really a consistent art style that the game wants to go with. Obviously, there are central design choices for the games or for the characters, but there are at least three distinct art styles while traversing the world. There's the chibi rounder ones that populate the hub world, which look like they come out of an anime fighting game lobby. There's the HD 2D-esque designs that the characters have during combat, which is probably my favorite of the three. And lastly, of course, there are the character portraits that have the most detail. Some look better in this mode than others, but it's hit or miss. But across the board, my least favorite design is of Takt himself. Takt Symphony makes the bold choice of not allowing you a customizable avatar. You are Takt Asino, whether you like it or not, and honestly, that's a much bigger detriment than I thought it would be. Many other gacha games understand that at least the main character should be genderless or let the player pick the character's gender. But here you are, the guy, Takt Asino, who looks just so goofy. Like countless other gacha game protagonists, he has amnesia but is actually the best and strongest guy around, and his arrival spurs the story into motion, causes chaos and excitement, all that fun stuff. However, like with many gacha game stories, the first few chapters I played did nothing for me. I couldn't get invested in the characters when it is just a guy that isn't meant to be an insert for me. And then Twinkle Star shows up, and I want them to leave immediately. Which is partially just because I loathe that like Oni-chan type character just so much, but also because she's one of the earliest characters you get. There are good characters with interesting designs in this game, but they give you Twinkle Star instead, so you have a healer. Going back to Takt, though, you also don't get to play as him, besides using him to navigate the hubs or simulated battles. The latter of which had me very excited after playing Simulated Universe and Honkai Star Rail, and to Takt's credit, the simulated battles aren't that bad. They're probably the most fun mode to play in the game, to be completely honest, because it mixes all the pieces of the game pretty well, and then decides to add a little puzzle game bit. From the levels I've played so far, the puzzles aren't that difficult, but they aren't aggressively easy. There's barely any story to it, which helps, and then it adds battles, which are fun enough, and I enjoy those. However, the battle system of Takt Symphony is an interesting one in that it's kind of just a worse version of Octopath Traveler's battle system. There's a turn order as well as the 4 primary characters you can use. The biggest difference is that Takt has ranges of effectiveness. If I put Destiny, the first character you ever get, in the front position like the game tells me to, her skills only work on the front 2 enemies. So if there are 3 enemies in line, Destiny's skill is just useless for the 3rd enemy as far as I'm aware. She's relegated to only using basic attacks until the enemy dies. Some character types, like the healer, can heal any team member, but even their magic skill only goes so far. The enemy isn't that far, just run towards it or shoot your magic ball further. It feels like an unneeded restriction on combat that I keep interacting with, and every time I'm like, this is stupid, why is it here? I just want to use my skills on all the enemies, not just the ones that are arbitrarily close enough for me to stab. But there's still other things to do in this game, like roll for more characters who can only hit from a specific distance. But before I talk about the gacha system itself, I want you to watch this clip. I totally understand the reasoning for having a piano be the way to start rolling. After all, you are technically conducting the characters. That's what their lore says. It doesn't really matter. Other games have gimmicks like the train door opening or unzipping a bag, but I've never had one that made me so angry. I genuinely do not know the trick to make the gacha roll start. It's both simultaneously hilarious and immensely annoying that I could probably play a whole song on the piano and still not end up actually starting my rolls. But like the gacha addict I am, I just want to roll, and I think this gimmick is one that I hate more than I like. But as for the characters, once you have them, it's fine. It looks very standard to most other gacha games with the characters and the functional crafts essences or light cones or whatever. I imagine it's probably deeper than that, but I haven't reached the depth where it matters too much. Honestly, I'd love a gacha game that just does an entirely different thing than this, but I bet that this is just the system that works best because you make people spend for two different things instead of just one. But on the whole, I think Takt Symphony is a good game in theory. The musical inspiration is neat, and I like it a lot in concept. The look of combat is nice, especially if you're a fan of that HD 2D-esque art style, which I am. But the problem is that once you start playing the game and interacting with it on a meaningful level, it refuses to fully embrace any of it. The art style changes a bunch, and the combat feels worse than other games it's looking to emulate. It has so many interesting ideas, but fumbles the execution of almost all of them. So maybe in a few years, Takt Symphony will be a good game, but for now, it has a long way ahead of it before it be one I would consider returning to playing casually.